Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome on into the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A, getting you set for Friday's main slate for MLB DFS. And I will be honest, it's been a little bit weird day. There was no solo shot this morning because there were no slates posted with the uncertainty around what the baseball schedule would look like for tonight. But it looks like we're going to have games. They were supposed to have a doubleheader between the Twins and the Tigers earlier. That got rained out, but it does seem as if we are going to have baseball throughout the day today, which means we have a main slate to discuss for MLB DFS. I would mention that if you want to play over on FanDuel, the contest sizes were smaller today because there wasn't as much time in the lobby. So I'd recommend potentially like reserving spots, getting your contests in over there so you can make sure to get in for the contest before they all fill up, because the one that I have pulled up right now is already full. So I would go over there and try to get your entries in right now while you're watching this stream. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Here taking your questions for the next 25 minutes, whether you're on FanDuel, the YouTube page, Twitch, or Facebook. We are taking questions from all three platforms for today. And like I said, bit of a weird slate. I've not had as much time to analyze this one because I didn't know if we'd actually have a slate. So we'll be kind of experiencing this one together. So we'll be going through this one. Get your questions in YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook. We can talk pitchers. We can talk stacks. We can talk one-offs, process, whatever it may be. Get those questions in. We'll be answering them on air here for today. First question from James is a good one. Thoughts on Corbin Burnes against Pittsburgh? My initial look at this slate was one where Corbin Burnes was my favorite lower salaried pitcher on the slate. He's facing Pittsburgh, which you mentioned. That's always going to be a good thing. We did just see Lucas Giolito. There were no hitter against him a couple nights ago. And Corbin Burnes has some strikeout upside. Already had his Fangraphs page pulled up over here. He did work out of the bullpen a little bit earlier this year, but even when he was in the bullpen, his pitch counts were still pretty high. They were at 69, nice, 77 and 64, 83 and 87 in his two starts moving back into the rotation, and 7 strikeouts last time out against this very same Pittsburgh offense. So I do think that Corbin Burnes is a good way to save some salary. He is $7,200. That is not all that expensive. Stacking's tough for this slate for sure, but if you want to get to some higher salaried Washington hitters, I think that Corbin Burnes, maybe you want to stack Coors. I'm a little bit wary of Coors personally, but maybe you want to get there. Corbin Burnes does make a lot of sense. Another pitcher question from Chadwick. Why should one choose Scherzer over McKenzie? I like the way you framed that, Chadwick. Pretty fun way to do so. McKenzie, I think, went 87 or 80 pitches in his first start this year. 80 in his debut. He still went 6 innings and had like 10 strikeouts, which is kind of nuts. So I think that McKenzie actually is a pretty good play. The one reason, if you're trying to pitch me on Scherzer here, Chadwick, is that the salary discrepancy is not as large as I would have expected. Scherzer is 10.6 and McKenzie is $8,700, so $1,900 between the two pitchers for tonight. So that's not that huge of a gap. And Scherzer at 10.6, not all that salary prohibitive. He's facing the Red Sox, a 24% strikeout rate this year against righties. They have been a lower strikeout team in the past. So I think that is interesting to see their strikeout rate going up. That, to me, is why I would go Max Scherzer over Tristan McKenzie. But I do think that McKenzie is a super defensible play. I mentioned that Corbin Burnes is my favorite guy below $9,000. I think McKenzie is easily number 2 on that list. So they're both in play. I would prefer Scherzer because the gap in salary is not all that large between the two of them. And I think that'd be the reason I'd give you if you wanted me to pitch you on Scherzer over McKenzie. But I do think both of them are good plays for tonight. Mateo, which 3 stacks do you like for tonight? Okay, let's go over here and let's go to the hitter section. I think that the Phillies are in play. They're facing Robbie Erlin. He has not been a starter for all that long. He's made 2 starts so far. His numbers as a reliever, it was a long reliever. He'd go a couple innings per outing. With the Padres last year, was about 20%. So I do think the Phillies are an option from a stacking perspective. I think that the Nationals are also in play. They're facing Martin Perez. Perez has been changing his pitch mix this year, fewer sinkers, which you would think would lead to more strikeouts, but it actually hasn't. His strikeout rate is still just 18%. So I think the Nationals righties are definitely good options for today. The Brewers are facing Derek Holland. The Brewers offense has been quite bad so far this year. So my level of faith in them is not all that high, but I think that you could still be okay with them despite that, especially the righties on the Brewers could definitely work out. Other stacks I would consider for today, yeah, I think those would be the main ones, I would say. I think that the Brewers, the Nationals, and the Phillies are probably my favorite ones of this slate. I think if you're looking for like a contrarian type stack, the Marlins are pretty interesting. I kind of glossed over Coors Field. That's because both Zach Davies and Kyle Freeland have done a really good job of limiting the damage done by balls in play against them. That hurts. And also, if you go to the weather report from Kevin Roth over on Roto Grinders, it seems like there's a pretty big level of concern about that game at Coors Field for tonight. So I think when you combine all of that together, I'm not as high on Coors Field as I usually would be. Usually it's just kind of, oh, they're playing Coors? Cool, stack it. I think for tonight, you actually have more leeway to not go with Coors Field. And it's also colder. It's 71 degrees. So I think that helps too. So I would say Coors lower on the list, despite this not being the best stacking slate of all time. Alvin is asking for the top pitchers. I mentioned Scherzer before. I think that he's probably my number one just because the Red Sox strikeout rate is high, whereas Zach Gallen, who's my number two, is facing the Giants. And the Giants, because they have a good number of lefties, are striking out not that much versus righties. Let's go over here to the pitcher tab. Zach Gallen facing the Giants, a 21% strikeout rate against righties. He is at home. That helps, but it also means he'll be playing in really hot temperatures. They've been keeping the roof open at Chase Field, so I'm putting the temperature here at 108 degrees, which is tough for pitching. So I'm going to go Scherzer 1, Gallen 2. I would go Corbin Burns 3, and then I would go with Tristan McKenzie number 4. So those are my top pitchers for tonight. Michael is asking, a lot of bad weather for today. Does that scare you off any games? Yeah, we're talking about, you probably asked us right before we talked about Coors Field. I think that I'm pretty wary of Coors as of right now. It's not just the rain, but also the temperature being lower there is a bad thing for Coors Field. So lowering hitters there are not a ton of interest from me personally. Kevin had flagged the Chicago and Cincinnati game and the Royals and White Sox. Seems like he was more concerned about the Cubs and the Reds. Let's scroll up here to check out that game. Okay, yeah, so you can see why there was some concern from Kevin with regards to the Cubs-Reds game. You could have some interest in the Cubs bats if there weren't to be any rain there. Tyler Mahle is okay. He's been getting some strikeouts this year, but he allows a lot of hard contact. He will walk some guys. There's some platoon stuff there too. So I think it's good to be lower on Coors Field and lower on the Cubs and Reds as a result of weather. Nick is asking, what are some problem areas with the rain postponement? Any games to avoid? Just went through that. So good question there, Nick, as we had been talking about that after you asked it. So my bad on getting to that one late. Would you stack the White Sox today? This is from William. So the White Sox are facing Danny Duffy, and I think that one also had some weather concerns. Let me scroll down here to find the White Sox. Actually, is that game not on the main slate? What am I talking about here? Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay, so they moved up to 7:10, the start time for this one, so I was lower my sheet. Looks like the weather here should be okay, so I'm going to assume that game goes. Now, Danny Duffy is interesting because when you look at his numbers so far this year, getting a lot of strikeouts, a 28% strikeout rate. So based on the numbers, you might be inclined to avoid Danny Duffy. However, he got pushed back a couple of days because of forearm tightness. That's kind of a concern. His velocity went down quite a bit in his most recent start. That's probably why he got pushed back and why they were flagging him as having a forearm strain. And the White Sox offense has been disgusting against left-handed pitchers so far this year. It's a small sample, so keep that in mind, especially with teams versus lefties. It's a small sample, but a 171 WRC plus with a 48% hard hit rate. So, William, I would say the White Sox are a good stack for tournaments as a result of their proficiency versus lefties and as a result of Danny Duffy potentially not being at 100% health. But for cash games, I think they're a pretty easy team to avoid. For tournaments, Yasmani Grandal is $2,900. He's batting third. Gotta like that. Edwin Encarnacion, as mentioned before, getting better getting better overall, getting better results recently. He is $2,800. I'm on board with that. Yoan Moncada got jumped down in the order, but I don't think that's enough to avoid him because Moncada has just so much upside, single game upside, that I think you can still get to him there. So honestly, anyone in the top 7, I think that Luis Robert is still in play too, despite batting 7th. So anyone within this order is going to be viable. But I think that the Grandal and Encarnacion plays are good if you need value. If you're not really concerned about salary, Tim Anderson, awesome play. Eloy Jimenez, always good too. And Jose Abreu at $4,100, someone I am very comfortable with for tonight as well. Taking a look at other pitchers here, trying to let's just plug in Scherzer here and kind of see what we can do here. So we had Scherzer as our top pitcher. I want to see what other stacks we should go to here. Which stack should we experiment? Let's experiment with a Philly stack here. All right, so let's go to the Phillies and check out them against Robbie Erlin. Sorry about that. Okay, so we have a lefty facing the Phillies. I am still okay with Bryce Harper, but however, we need to consider that we need to save some salary here because we have Scherzer at 10-6. So let's go with Andrew McCutchen. He's batting leadoff. Let's check out a Rhys Hoskins, see what he's been doing recently, because Hoskins burned us plenty of times previously, but the offense seems like it's starting to come around, potentially being a bit less passive at the plate. He's still walking a lot, but it seems like things are getting better there. So I'm going to go Rhys Hoskins, get him in there. Let's see, lower in the order, Alec Boehm batting 8th. That's a little bit too low, so let's go Gene Segura batting 5th. Can definitely get behind that. And then I think we have enough leeway to go with Harper as long as we find some value elsewhere. 28.75 is enough to work with. So I would say from a Phillies perspective, 1, 2, 4 or 1, 2, 3, 5, pretty intriguing stack for tonight. So the Phillies offense, easy to stack when you go with Max Scherzer. Other offenses we are considering a Nationals stack. So let's check out, see if the Nationals lineup is loaded in here already. And it is not. Let's see if it's out. Nationals lineup actually is not out yet, so I guess we'll be holding off on them. Oh, just kidding, it is out. Okay, cool. So we have Trey Turner leadoff, Howie Kendrick, Asdrubal Cabrera. The Nationals against the lefties. Again, this is a small sample, so I wouldn't put all the stock in this, but we definitely see that Asdrubal Cabrera, who is a switch hitter, has done really well against lefties. So let's reload this tab here so we can get the spots in the batting order loaded for this Nationals offense. Alvin is saying Harper has been really good against Erlin so far this year. I think that Harper's going to be good against any pitcher because he's good. But it doesn't hurt that he's done well. It doesn't hurt that he's seen Erlin so far this year too. I'd be skeptical of batter versus pitcher numbers in pretty much any sample, but it doesn't hurt that he's seen him. I think that's valuable. And again, Bryce Harper's really good. So I think that Harper, despite facing a lefty, is someone we'll want to go at for today, pretty much regardless. Loading up the Nationals lineup here. Cabrera batting 4th, $2,800. I can get behind that for sure. Trey Turner does have a high salary at 39, but the steals coming back into play for Trey Turner so far this year. So I still think that is fine. Howie Kendrick still second base. So between Howie Kendrick and Gene Segura, second base, not as much of a black hole of despair as it usually is. So that definitely helps too. So we got Kendrick, Cabrera, Turner, and that's going to make it tough to go Soto. You might have to choose if you're going Scherzer between Soto and Trey Turner because Soto's salary is so high. Let's go here. Juan Soto, still got good numbers against lefties. I think he had great numbers against lefties last year too. So let's do 2019 through 2020 for Nationals hitters against lefties. Juan Soto against lefties, 40% hard hit rate, 34% fly ball rate, 19% strikeout rate. Okay, Juan Soto is good against anyone. So I think it just depends on, you need a shortstop, go Turner. You need an outfielder, go Soto. Alvin says, you Braves fan. Okay, nice. Okay, smacked him for 2 home runs this year, I believe. Okay, again, Bryce Harper, good against anyone. Alvin, I'm sorry that Bryce Harper has caused this disgruntlement, and hopefully things go better for you in the very near future. But maybe you can hedge your bets and put Harper in there for tonight, just in case he hits more home runs. At least you have the emotional hedge there where your DFS lineups can benefit even if things don't go all that well for you as a Braves fan. I think another potential stacking option for tonight that we have not discussed yet is the Dodgers, because Mike Minor got off to this really good start last year. And then I think it was in like June, maybe even May, his velocity kind of fell off the table. And once that happened, we saw his peripherals take a hit really quickly. And they didn't really recover as the year went along. So far this year, let's check out Minor's numbers. His peripherals have definitely been similar to what they were last year. I think this is over his past 3 starts because he's been using his four-seam fastball more often as opposed to his changeup. So, yeah, this is just over his past 3 starts. 48% hard hit rate allowed. That is really high. 6.75 ERA. He's in Texas. I would assume that the roof is closed in Texas for tonight. So not a great park for the Dodgers, but they don't really need a great park to be in play. The one thing you could say against the Dodgers is that their numbers against lefties are not as good as what they are against righties because a lot of their top-end hitters are left-handed batters. So you could potentially push back on a Dodgers stack by saying, they're not necessarily the same offense you would expect against lefties as what they are against righties. Let's scroll down here and take a look at the projected order for the Dodgers for today, facing Mike Minor. Justin Turner, $3,200. A.J. Pollock is $3,000. I've used A.J. Pollock more than I think any other batter so far this year. It feels like Chris Taylor. So the Dodgers honestly have a good amount of value. And if you use Turner, Pollock, and Taylor, you might be able to get Mookie Betts in there. Mookie Betts is one of the best hitters in all of baseball. So let's actually experiment with this. Alvin asked a question. I'll get to that in a second, Alvin, to get to you. Let's go with Dodgers and get Kendrick out of there. All right, let's go with Turner. Let's go Pollock. And then let's scroll down here to Chris Taylor. Phil shortstop. That's good. If we do that, 31, I think we can make Mookie work, especially if we have a value second stack. So that's 27.75. We can make that work. We know you go Gene Segura, you get Rhys Hoskins in there, Andrew McCutchen. I think that works. So I think a Mookie Scherzer pairing for tonight is something you can definitely do. And the Dodgers, pretty high quality stack. Now, Alvin asked about the other Los Angeles team, the Los Angeles Angels. Angels facing Nick Margevicius. So let's pull up Margevicius' player page because the samples on him are pretty small. So we have to make sure we're not looking at bad numbers when it comes to pulling up his numbers for this year. Margevicius in his age 24 season. Wait for this to reload here. 23% strikeout rate. Some of that came as a reliever, so we view that with some skepticism, but a lot of hard contact allowed. Last year, Margevicius, decently high hard hit rate as well. Not a lot of strikeouts. The swinging strike rate is actually down this year. So as a starter, not the worst results, but also not the best. 4 earned runs as a lefty against Texas is actually pretty concerning. So I would say the Angels are a pretty good option, Alvin. I think that I could definitely get behind that. The Angels have had a rough start this year, from a true team perspective, and they haven't been that good against lefties, but I think that we can still get there. The one issue that I have personally with stacking the Angels against lefties, it means it's harder to use Shohei Ohtani, and Tommy La Stella, who is like this constant value within the Angels lineup, is less intriguing against the lefty. So they might be tough to afford for tonight because David Fletcher isn't really all that cheap either. Got Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon, definitely guys you want to get in there. But I do think that the Angels are in play, especially if you decide to go with a Corbin Burns as your pitcher, then you can get Anthony Rendon and Mike Trout in there. And I think that's a pretty desirable thing for this slate. So, Alvin, I would say, thumbs up on the Angels for this one, especially if you're going with a lower salary pitcher. Maybe if you go with McKenzie, too, the Angels could work there as well. Okay, what other stacks have we not discussed yet as far as ones that adds some? Okay, so the Brewers are facing Derek Holland. Let's go to the Brewers here, check out their numbers against lefties. Let's also check out Holland's numbers to make sure he hasn't been doing, 4.93 skill interactive ERA. I think this is as a starter. 4 starts that he's made this year, 4.93 skill interactive ERA. A lot of hard contact, the exact same thing we saw from Holland last year. So I think that means we can stack the Brewers against him. The concern is that the Brewers have been really bad. They've been better against lefties. That's definitely encouraging. A 116 WRC plus against them. They're drawing a lot of walks. That's definitely a good thing. The problem is that it's a small sample. So a little bit of concern there. Let's see if the Brewers lineup is out yet. It does not appear that it is. We'll refresh here just to double check that it's not. And waiting for that to refresh. Doesn't appear as if it's out yet. So we'll go to the projected lineup for the Brewers and see what we can find here instead. The Brewers, I could just search for it, but that'd be way too easy. Okay, so Ryan Braun, $2,700 salary saver there. Keston Hiura, rough start to the year. Jed Jerko, $2,200. I think that Hiura is still someone I would go to despite the rough start. He's been striking out a lot. And that's a concern because Holland can get strikeouts. So you kind of want to target guys who avoid strikeouts against him. But Hira, a very talented hitter, so I think I'm going to trust the talent there and still go back to him. And then Jed Jerko, let's see what his numbers are since the start of last year. Not a lot of strikeouts. So I think that Jerko works too. So the Brewers are a team I would go to as well. D-backs looking good according to your sheet. Okay, so this is the one area where my sheet can be flawed, I think is the way I'd say it. Skill Interactive ERA undervalues hard contact against. Tyler Anderson has been getting a good amount of soft contact because the hard hit rates across the league are higher this year, and he's been limiting hard contact. He's been going pretty deep into games. And the Diamondbacks have a lot of guys I prefer to target against righties as opposed to lefties. So that's why I haven't mentioned them, despite the fact they do look good here. They will put the ball in play. That's good for guys like Christian Walker. But I think with the way that Anderson successfully limits hard contact, I am lower on them than it would appear based on this. So that's why they look good. But I personally I have a higher view of Anderson than my sheet does personally. Finest 100. I like it when you put stacks in your FanDuel launch show us good plays. It helps. Thanks. You're welcome. I could try to do that more often too, because I think it's helpful just to interact with the user face too. So I appreciate that. Kevin, best single entry stack on FanDuel. Okay, I like this question because single entry, we're thinking about a couple different things. We are committing to one team. You're committing to two teams because of the stack, and you want to get two teams in there. Let's take a look here. If I am going with a single entry stack, I think the White Sox are kind of intriguing because they're so good against lefties, and people may be scared off because of what Danny Duffy has done from a strikeout perspective this year. May not know that he's been dealing with some forearm issues. The White Sox implied total is 5.3, so I think that they will still be decently popular, but I would say the White Sox are a good team to target for a single entry tournament lineup because I'm not sure. It's hard to get a read on popularity for today because there's been less analysis because slates are posted later. So I actually don't have a great read on what will be popular tonight versus what will not. But I do think the White Sox will be a good option. I would go the Brewers too against Derek Holland for single entry. Cody is asking, how can I get that sheet? I could publish it, but I never really have the time to do it. It's just, so the way that this sheet is formulated is that I got through each pitcher. I will go through their game logs on Fangraphs and try to pull their most relevant sample. With Mike Minor, we were talking about his past 3 starts because he's been throwing more fastballs in that time. So I look for relevant pitch mixes, when Jamison Tyone added a slider, I think it was a couple years ago, it didn't matter what he had done before that. So you wanted to pull his data in that time versus his data in the full sample. So I go into each pitcher, try to see what their most relevant sample is, and then put that on here. The reason that I haven't made it public is I just don't like a lot of time. So I could potentially look into it, Cody, but I'll hold it up here long enough. So if you just want to screenshot it, that's not going to bother me. So if you just want to take a screenshot of this, I think that could work. And tune it. Cal mentioned this too, our video producer. You can tune in every day to see the sheet. I'll be sure to pull it up here long enough so you can screenshot it, but I just don't have time to publish the full thing. Ron, home run calls for today. Have a great weekend. You too, Ron. Okay, home run calls for today. Edwin Encarnacion. We're getting the parrot twice today. Guaranteed. And the double dong guarantees have not been that good this year. So Edwin Encarnacion tomorrow, going to go deep twice, but he's also going to do it today. So Edwin Encarnacion is number 1. I will go with Ryan Braun as my number 2. Last question from Alvin. How much stock do you put into the bullpen of the stacks you are targeting? Really good question, Alvin, because bullpen usage or bullpen does matter. And it does matter because a lot of times when you're stacking, you're getting 5 innings against a bullpen. If you get no points in those 5 innings, that's pretty tough. So bullpen does matter. The way that I view things, Alvin, is I try to have in my mind the really good bullpens I need to be lower on stacking against, and the poor bullpens I need to be up on. I don't really care too much about the blob in the middle. If you are 13th versus 20th, I don't really care. It's more 5th versus 27th that I care about. So I would say, Alvin, try to identify the extremes with the bullpens and weigh that in. But that's a really good question. Bullpen does matter. Defense matters too for the same reasons. Anthony, Favorite White Sox bats. We were talking about this before, but I think it depends on where you're going. So I'm going to go Max Scherzer because I think we're just going, let's say this is a single entry lineup and we're going White Sox. And if I'm going to pump the White Sox, I might as well say who I want to use within the White Sox. If I'm going Scherzer, I think the first guys I go to personally are Yasmani Grandal and E5. I want to get that double dong in there. Once we do that, 31-17 left for the rest of this lineup. I like Tim Anderson a lot, so this could be just like a personal bias thing, but I'm going to put Tim Anderson in there, and I'm going to go Yoel Moncada despite the fact that he's batting sixth. Like, if we're playing things optimally, I would go Eloy Jimenez because he's batting second, but I have personal biases and happen to like Tim Anderson and Yoel Moncada a lot. I have a Yoel Moncada MVP ticket I'd like to cash, so we'll go with those two within the White Sox stack. If you're playing things optimally, like if you're stacking the White Sox in cash, which I probably wouldn't do, but if you are doing that, I'd recommend going with Jimenez over Moncada, but I like you on Moncada more, so we're going to do it. Can you play Mondesi as contrarian with so many studs at shortstop? Alberto Mondesi has had a really rough year. He's facing Ronaldo Lopez. That definitely does help. Mondesi's been stealing a lot of bases recently, benefiting my season-long team, even though season-long is the worst. $2,600, batting seventh. Let's see what he's done here recently to see if potentially that bat is coming around. That still really isn't coming around. I probably would not, but I don't think it's the worst idea because he does have a path upside with the stolen bases. Okay, sorry, I'm going over here. Let's burn through a couple questions quick. Favorite Brewer bats, Jed Jerko, Ryan Braun. Any cancellation forecast weathers tonight mentioned? I'm scared about Coors. Check out Kevin Roth of Roto Grinders on Twitter to see what he has, but I'm scared about Coors. A little bit scared about the Cubs game as well. Cubs stack ? Scared about weather, but I think that they're okay against Molly if you get the weather. Favorite Brewers stack, again, we're going with Ryan Braun, Jed Jerko. I would get Keston Hiura in there, and then a fourth bat of your choice. If it's Yelich, great. If not, cool. Final question. Yeah, I think that was all we had. Okay, so sorry about that. I went a little bit over, but hopefully answered the questions there. Like I said, Cody, if you want the sheet, I will just pull it up during the broadcast each day, and you can screenshot it. Hopefully that helps. I think I can use Sanchez in cash and load up on bats. 6 of Sanchez. Actually, I wouldn't use him in cash, but like he's an okay play for tournaments. So I would say in tournaments, yes. In cash games, no. I would try to get up to Scherzer for that. That is all the time that we have for today. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I know it's been a weird day today, but I appreciate your patience with us and appreciate your patience with baseball and athletes and everything because working for bigger things right now, and I appreciate that. So hopefully we can get some change going on here, and I appreciate the athletes using their voice and their platform to try to enact that change. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone. Back with you once again on Monday for the regular schedule, solo shot at 9 a.m., and the Q&A at 4 p.m. Eastern as well. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer from the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always, and thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck tonight. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll talk to you again on Monday. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A.